Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala Sayyidina Rasulullah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Before we begin our majlis tonight, a common question that people ask, and there's a lot of confusion about, is whom should I study my religion from? And one of the most beautiful presentations of what are the qualities one should be seeking in a person that one relies upon to take one's religion is given by al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, who's a great imam of hadith and a distinguished Faqih, a distinguished scholar of Islamic law as well. And this work, al-Faqih wal-Mutafaqqih, is a 2-volume work on the way of Islamic scholarship and the way of the characteristics of those who have it in their understanding and teaching, and also how to attain deep understanding of religion. It's one of the great works on the path of Islamic scholarship, called al-Faqih wal-Mutafaqqih. So he says, deep into the book, باب اختيار الفقهاء الذين يتعلم منهم, a chapter on choosing the fuqaha. And here fuqaha refers to not just specifically the scholars of fiqh that one studies fiqh from, but which scholars of understanding, right? Fiqh in deen is those of deep understanding of religion. He says, ينبغي للمتعلم أن يقصد من الفقهاء من اشتهر بالديانة وعرف بالستر والصيانة. He says, it is incumbent upon the seeker of knowledge, the muta'allim, to purposefully seek out of the people of deep learning those who are well established, well known for their religiosity. Those who are well known for their religiosity. There's an underlying criteria, which is the first thing is that you only seek knowledge from those who are established to be fuqaha, established to be people of deep understanding. Right? So that's the first, that's almost like a given. But even amongst them, you should seek out the people of known religiosity. Now, if you're a common person like myself or yourself, how do we know that? By consulting other people of known religiosity, right? One should ask the question, whom should I study with? Whom should I listen to? And that would avoid a lot of the confusion. Anything that appears on the next video on YouTube is not worth watching necessarily, right? So they're well known for their religiosity, number one. وَعُرِفَ بِالسَّتْرِ وَالصِّيَانَةِ, and they're known for their guardedness, right? And their restraint in their ways, right? Their guardedness and restraint, right? And how? By the people who know, right? By the people who know. And we have a prophetic promise that in every generation there'll be those who are clearly on the truth. So if we're not sure about someone, we confirm with those who we clearly know to be people of knowledge. And with respect to this principle that he lays out, he relates with his chain of transmission from Muhammad ibn Sirin, rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the great imams of the Salaf, who many of you may know from his book of dreams, which for some reason got translated into English, and for some stranger reason published in Arabic before the translation. But that's, Ibn Sirin wasn't a dream interpreter. Right? That's just something he wrote as an aside. He was one of the great early imams of the Salaf. So he said, إِنَّمَا هَذَا الْعِلْمُ دِينٌ, truly this knowledge is your religion, is your life transaction with God. فَانظُرُوا عَمَّنْ تَأْخُذُونَهُ, so look carefully as to whom you take it from. And this was mentioned by Imam Muslim in his muqaddimah, in his introduction to his magnificent Sahih, right? And a number of others said the same said the same thing or similar. And so that's the first principle, that be careful that the person you take your religion from is a person of fiqh fi deen, of deep, established understanding of religion, not just superficial understanding. Just because they can speak Arabic or can quote a few things or they're compelling, etc. No, confirm that, number one. Number two, confirm that they're a person of known religiosity, etc. Right? Don't just rely, because it's deen, it's your life transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't put your religious understanding in the hands of those you don't trust. And then, so that's principle one. Principle number two, and this is a precious principle, he says, وَيَكُونُ قَدْ وَسَمَ نَفْسَهُ بِآدَابِ الْعِلْمِ. And such a person of deep knowledge would have characterized themselves with the proper manners of knowledge. And what are the proper manners of knowledge? Well, because the person of knowledge that you're seeking knowledge from should not just be telling you about deen, they should be striving to embody that deen themselves. And what is al-ilm al-nafi'? Right? What is beneficial knowledge? Beneficial knowledge is ما جاء عن رسول الله, that which came from the Messenger of Allah. So the person you seek knowledge from should be striving to embody that prophetic approach. And what is that? من استعمال الصبر والحلم, from upholding patience and forbearance. والتواضع للطالبين, and of having humility with students. والرفق بالمتعلمين, and being gentle with those learning. ولين الجانب, and gentleness in their approach. ومدارات الصاحب, and being tactful and considerate of those, of their companions. وقول الحق, and speaking truth. والنصيحة للخلق, and having sincere care and concern for creation. وغير ذلك من الأوصاف الحميدة والنعوت الجميلة, and other qualities that are praiseworthy and characteristics that are beautiful. Right? And he said that, so this is stated by al-Khatib al-Baghdadi in his work, and he says, وقد جاء عن علي بن أبي طالب رضي الله تعالى عنه خبر جمع فيه ما فصلناه. It says, and there's come from Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, reports that detail, that gather what we have given exposition to here. وَمَا أَشَرْنَا إِلَيْهِ مِمَّا أَجْمَلْنَا, and that points to the meanings that we have summarized here. And he mentioned some of these, and we'll just mention one of them, that it is very important to look carefully that the person you're taking knowledge from is striving to uphold these qualities. Now, we don't expect permission, we don't expect perfection from anyone but the prophets, right? But we do expect striving. We do expect striving. And especially if one spends time and interacts with people, one will notice that everyone falls short. Everyone falls short. Everyone, the Prophet ﷺ told us, وَهُوَ الصَّادِقُ الْمَصْدُوقُ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ, that كُلُّ ابْنِ آدَمَ خَطَّاء, that all the children of Adam are frequent in error. خطاء, يعني a khata or khati'ah is an error. But khata are all the children of Adam are given to error, are frequently errant. وَخَيْرُ الْخَطَّائِينَ التَّوَّابُونَ, and the best of those who err are those who are the most repentant. And tawwabun again is in the emphatic. So people are given to much error, but the best of those who err are those who are most repentant. And they say the most repentant is both in the degree of their remorse and the speed of their remorse, of their redress, and the frequency of it. So that they make a mistake, they follow it, they admit it, they follow up with its rectification. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of such. So Sayyidina Ali gives a beautiful summary of what are the qualities of a person of knowledge. And these are qualities that one should be looking for. This is what are the fruits of knowledge? What is knowledge that benefits? Knowledge that benefits is knowledge that draws you closer to Allah. How do you draw closer to Allah? You draw closer to Allah through striving to live the prophetic qualities. And those qualities have fruits. And when you seek knowledge, seek it from a tree that bears those fruits. So, Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib relates, and al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, being an Imam of Hadith, everything that he quotes in the book, he mentions with his chain of transmission. And that's one of the amazing things about our deen. That it's not just that someone said, oh, Sayyidina Ali said this, but from where? Right? So he says here that he heard from Abu al-Qasim al-Azhari and Ahmad ibn Abdul Wahid al-Wakil, both of whom said that Abu al-Hasan Muhammad ibn Ja'far al-Tamimi said that they heard from Abu Ahmad al-Juludi, from Ibn Zakawayh, from Al-Utbi, from his father. And the amazing thing in the science of hadith is that every single one of these narrators, we have his or her biography. We know about their life. They've all been tested in their narration. So we know about their life biography, when their full name, when they're born, when they died, who their teachers were, whom they narrate from. We know about their uprightness through people bearing witness to that this person was a person of uprightness. And we know, and they've been tested in their reliability in terms of narration. Who is absolutely accurate, who is sound, who has some weakness, but is good. Some weakness, but is questionable. And who is just a out there narrator. And there's subtleties in it. Because human beings they're not all just like black and white. They're good people and bad people. They're complicated. So there's some good people, some righteous people, who weren't accurate narrators. So sometimes the hadith scholars will say abid, a worshipper. Or they call him salih. They say righteous. Meaning that they're righteous. We don't want to say it, but they're not particularly solid in narrating hadith. Where there's some people who are just so out there. They say if you want to learn bad language, there's some places in the Islamic sciences where you can look. And don't get bad ideas. And most of you probably won't find it, so I'll mention it. One of the places is look in the books of al-Jarh wa-Ta'dil, of hadith criticism. Because you'll find some of the worst way, Dajjal. They just go all the way, call someone a Dajjal. And other things. Okay. And another place, of course, is if you look in Bab al-Nushuz, in the chapter on marital discord. Right? And what counts as talaq and what doesn't. Right? And don't get bad ideas, because one of my friends actually, he gave up learning fiqh when he reached the chapter on talaq. Because it says, is it a reasonable excuse if your wife rips your shirt? If she hits you? What if she hits you on the face? What if she punches you? What if she injures you? What if this? What if this? What if this? What if she calls you that you are worse than the shaitan? What if she says, like all kinds of different things. So each of these narrators, we know all these things about them, right? And this is one of the amazing things. So there's more than 500,000 narrators from the age of narration, right? Of core narration till the major hadith books and the derivative hadith books from that age, that we have well over 500,000 biographies, right? And there's many books on the biographies of these hadith narrators. And they're brief biographies because they're very condensed. They're for specialists. They're not interested in, the fact that they honeymooned in the Bahamas or whatever, right? But in the things related to their being hadith narrators. Several of these works go into the 20 plus volumes. Right? And even now, with hadith, people who understand hadith, you mention a hadith and they'll know the chains of transmission. And they'll say, once one of the scholars, and I won't mention, is one of the North American scholars, but he's not North American per se, although he is. I just asked him what the reference was for a hadith. And he went into half an hour discussion about, I know I said it's sahih, but if you have a concern about that, there are those who said they're weak. And he goes into this whole thing because in the one mentioned in Imam Ahmad, there's this narrator, and they differed about him, but here he narrated. Actually, through the whole conversation, all I was thinking about was, I needed to have dinner. This sheikh was hungry. We ran into Imam Zayd. Imam Zayd decided to join us for dinner. It's one of the few things I hold against Imam Zayd. Imam Zayd said, why don't we eat healthy? So we went to Whole Foods. And there wasn't a whole lot of food you could eat there. Anyways, alhamdulillah. But there's still people like that. You mention you mention a hadith, they know not just the train of narrative, but they're familiar. These are like people we know well. That how is so and so in their hadith accuracy? How is so and so? So with this chain of transmission, he mentions Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib, and this is what we should be seeking in a teacher. Number one, right? Until one's verified that, one should not commit to studying with someone. Why? Because knowledge is deen, right? If it's worth studying, anything religiously worth benefiting from is only worth benefiting from insofar as it will draw you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the only thing that will draw you closer to Allah is that which corresponds to the approach of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, how do you know that? How do you know that? Verify. Right? Verify. Don't, the early Muslims say, لا تمكن أذنك من مبتدع. Don't give your ear to an innovator. Right? Said it's less harmful for you to spend time with a corrupt person. And just spend time with them in a worldly basis because you know that they're kind of shady, right? In some of the things they do. And most people aren't corrupt all the time anyway. So even if they're not religiously upright, whatever, that's detrimental company. But if you're of religious concern, you'll know that they're, how to watch out. But spending time with people who have questionable religious conduct, questionable religious understanding, it will affect your religious conduct. It'll affect your character. It'll affect your approach to the deen. And it'll harm you. And it could make you, in the future, a source of harm for others. So this is something that's been neglected in our time, that people just listen to, like in Sham, they say, Hayy Allah Shaykh, like whatever comes up. And this is a serious bid'ah. So, and also, of course, this is not to use simply to judge others, but this should be a standard, that in seeking knowledge, what are we seeking ourselves? So, Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib, karramallahu ta'ala wajhah, said, Ya talib al-ilm, inna al-ilma dhu fada'ila kathira. O seeker of knowledge, truly knowledge has great virtues, has many virtues, fada'il. And even the idea of fadila or fada'il, what is it? Right? Al-fadl, right, is that which goes beyond the norm. Right? You have that which is acceptable. That's that which is acceptable. The fadl is that which is above and beyond the acceptable, in a good way. There's a negative term, because fadl means extra. The fadila is that which goes above and beyond the acceptable in a good way. there's a negative sense from the same root of fadl, which is fudul, which is that which goes beyond the acceptable in a negative direction. Fudul, yeah, fudul al-kalam, which is excessive speech. That which is extra on the direction of no benefit or harm. So fada'il is virtues. It is things that are of clear good. Right? فَرَأْسُهُ التَّوَاضُعُ. Right? That he's imagining that knowledge is like a person. Right? Knowledge is like a person. It's a powerful image. Why? Because Sayyidina Ali, who is a person, Sayyidina Ali, one of his characteristics was he was very quiet. He was a very pensive person, given to a lot of reflection, which is why he had amazing insights. Okay? So he's that, because knowledge is meant to make you fully human. And knowledge is meant to make you fully human. So you can think of knowledge as a human being. But a human being is only truly human, is only fully human if they have all their parts. Right? There's a person, but they don't have their head. Right? That فَرَأْسُهُ التَّوَاضُعُ. Its head is humility. Its head is humility. وَعَيْنُهُ الْبَرَاءَةُ مِنَ الْحَسَدِ. And its eyes are to be completely free of envy. وَأُذُنُهُ الْفَهْمِ. And its ears are understanding. And of course here, how? For you as a student of knowledge, you have to cultivate that understanding. In the person you're seeking knowledge from, you have to see, do they have understanding? Right? And if you aren't at a level of assessing, then you have to consult. You want to benefit from someone who has insight and understanding. وَلِسَانُهُ الصِّدْقِ. And knowledge, if you picture it as a human being, its tongue is truthfulness. وَحِفْظُهُ الْفَحْصِ. And its preservation is review. Right? Is review and testing oneself. وَقَلْبُهُ حُسْنُ النِّيَّةِ. And the heart of knowledge is good intention. وَعَقْلُهُ مَعْرِفَةُ الْأَشْيَاءِ وَالْأُمُورِ الْوَاجِبَةِ. And the intellect of knowledge, right? The intelligence of knowledge is to knowing things and matters that are necessary. Right? Because knowledge is, because Sayyidina Ali is telling us, knowledge is not just a bunch of information. Someone can just quote things. But knowledge itself is the one who has knowledge. It requires intellect. And what is the sign of intellect? Is to know the things and matters that are necessary. There are tools of sound thinking, sound reasoning, sound understanding. There's principles of religion, of religious approach that need to be in place for one's knowledge to be sound. وَيَدُهُ الرَّحْمَةِ. And the hand of knowledge, which is what touches things. Right? The hand is that which gives and that which takes, is mercy. Right? وَرِجْلُهُ زِيَارَةُ الْعُلَمَاءِ. And the legs of knowledge is visiting the scholars. And how does this benefit with respect to the scholars, the people we want to learn from? Simple thing is, who does this person of knowledge affiliate with? Who are they connected with of the recognized people of knowledge? Who are their teachers? And do their teachers approve of them? Because it's not just to say, well, I'm a student of so-and-so, but the person says, I don't know who it is. Right? Someone said they're a student of a certain sheikh. So I said, mashallah, your students come up with books. I said, who? I mentioned the name. I said, is he from such and such background? I said, yeah. I said, I met him once or twice in some of my public classes, but I don't know who they are. Right? So you have to be careful of false claims. Right? So its feet are visiting the scholars. And this is something that one looks at. Who are they connected with? And what you see is from even the senior most scholars, they remain connected to the ulama. They'll visit them. They'll have the people of knowledge over. They're connected to that. But someone who's just on their own, neither do they consult people of knowledge, nor are they connected with them, right? That's dangerous. That's dangerous, and it results in harm. Right? And personally, for a seeker of knowledge, one of the big mistakes people make is the only point of connection they have with people of knowledge is whether listening to them, right? Listening to their talks or lectures or lessons, or attending their classes. But anyone who's had contact with people of knowledge, etc., most of the benefit you can gain from people of knowledge is what you can gain outside the actual study. Of course, you need that study to ground you, but to see how it is lived, right? How it is lived. Like I went to visit one of my teachers a few years ago, and I had a bunch of questions to ask, I arrived around Dhuhr time, and just observing this person perform their Dhuhr prayer, I felt like saying, everything that I needed was answered. I wanted to, I came to visit you because I had several things I wanted to ask about. Jazakallah khair. I got what I needed. Assalamu alaikum. But I had 5 days. I said, okay, well, yeah, I'm sure there's more to benefit than that. But that's what they say. The one whose state, Ibn Ata'illah said, لا تصحب من لا ينهضك حاله. Right? Do not keep the company of one whose state does not uplift you. وَيَدُلُّكَ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَقَالُ, and whose words then point you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that aspect is very important, right? And that's one of the neglected things, that people don't visit the people of knowledge. They don't invite them over. And it's an important sunnah. We see so many hadiths of the Sahaba visiting the Prophet ﷺ, visiting the other senior companions, not just limited to Rasulullah ﷺ, because that is a precedent. And of them inviting, and you say, oh, he's busy. There's no one ever who's been more busy than Rasulullah ﷺ. But they'd ask him to come, if they had a new residence, they'd ask the Prophet ﷺ to come there. When they heard that it's good to have a place of worship in your house, so many of the companions asked Rasulullah ﷺ to come and pray there, seeking its blessings, etc. So this is a neglected sunnah. But in the person of knowledge should be visiting them, one, to observe, just to observe. Second, to benefit through consulting them, etc. And he says, وَهِمَّتُهُ السَّلَامَةِ, and the resolve of knowledge is salama, is to be safe, right? Is to be free of harm. How? It's a sign of resolve, right? That you avoid questionable things, you avoid harmful things, you avoid things that are potentially detrimental. Right? They choose. They say, "As-salama la yu'adiluha shay." There's nothing like safety. Right? وَحِكْمَتُهُ الْوَرَعُ, and the wisdom of knowledge is scrupulousness, is wara'. And this is something that the sunnah is to inculcate in one's family and one's children from a young age. Sayyidina al-Hasan ibn Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma said, حَفِظْتُ عَنْ جَدِّ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. I memorized from my grandfather, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, دَعْ مَا يَرِيبُكَ إِلَى مَا لَا يَرِيبُكَ. Leave all that will make you doubt for all that would not make you doubt. and in some narrations, I heard this from him. Right? That's why I said I memorized from him. Because he was only, they differ. Was he 4 or 5, maybe at most 6 when he heard this? Like this was inculcated, like caution, scrupulousness, doing things in the better way. Right? That's the characteristic. Right? وَمُسْتَقَرُّهُ النَّجَاةِ. Right? The resting place of knowledge is salvation. Now, how does that have to do with being a seeker of knowledge? What is a seeker of knowledge seeking? You're not seeking, I want to be the theologian of my age. I want to have, someone actually told me recently, my goal is to have more Facebook likes than Imam Zayd. So I actually went on Facebook, checked how many Facebook likes does Imam Zayd have. But like, who cares? Right? Like, who cares? Right? Like, what is the aim of this? Right? What is the aim? Right? What is the concern? Right? Mustaqarruhu, the resting place of it is salvation. And najat, of course, is is to be saved, but also to attain that which one seeks. Right? Najah is the one who's victorious. Right? وَقَائِدُهُ الْعَافِيَةِ. And the guide, the one leading knowledge ahead is afiyah, is well-being, is to be free of harm, right? Of any kind. Right? وَمَرْكَبُهُ الْوَفَاءِ. And its mount is loyalty. And this is one of the characteristics of the righteous, of the true people of knowledge, is that they're loyal. They remember those who did good to them. And they remain connected to them. They remain connected to their old teachers. They recognize the people who assisted them long ago. Right? Even on things that the person who helped them on would consider trivial. Right? And this is why Abu Madian said, "Man arada as-safa falyalzam al-wafa." Whoever seeks spiritual purity must adhere to loyalty. Right? And it's a sign of trueness of gratitude. And it was a state of the Prophet ﷺ used to acknowledge the friends of Sayyidah Khadija. Years after she'd passed away, he used to periodically send gifts to them. Even though, what had they done for her? Most people would consider the friends of their spouse to be annoyances. Right? Like, why isn't she home? Oh, because she's with her friends. Yay. Right? وَسِلَاحُهُ لِينُ الْكَلِمَةِ. And the weapon of knowledge. Right? The weapon of knowledge. Right? And what's the weapon? Right? Is that by which you succeed. Right? وَسِلَاحُهُ لِينُ الْكَلِمَةِ. Its weapon is gentleness, is the gentle word. Right? This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Sayyidina Musa when he was told to go to the worst of Allah's creation, Fir'aun, to say to him a gentle word. Say to him a gentle word. Nasrullah al-afiyah. Right? This is the weapon of knowledge. That's the weapon. وَسَيْفُهُ الرِّضَى. Right? So the weapon of knowledge is the gentle word. Right? That's the arsenal. Right? And it has many different weapons. وَسَيْفُهُ الرِّضَى. And its sword is contentment. If you're content with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything will work. If you're not content with Allah, everything else is messed up. Right? Doesn't matter what you do. If you don't approach it with contentment, no weapon's going to work. Right? But if your arsenal is gentleness of word, right? Directed with a heart that is content, then it'll have success. وَفَرَسُهُ الْمُدَارَى, and its stallion, right? Its horse, its mount. What do you ride on, right? Because if there's war, you need weapons, right? And in a real battle, you can't just do with one weapon because it might get knocked out, etc. You need multiple weapons. You need to be well equipped because there'll be different types of challenges in war. But in battle, right, the one who's on a horse has a huge advantage over the one who's just walking. Right? What is the steed, the stallion, right? The horse of the person of knowledge? Al-Mudara is one of the very neglected virtues. Mudara, and it's one of the most neglected virtues and one of the most sensitive of virtues. Because if misapplied, it becomes hypocrisy. Okay? Mudara is tact, it's discretion, it's consideration. Right? Mudara is defined as upholding what is right with rightful consideration of people, circumstances, and consequences. So mudara is to be considerate. Right? That you don't just do the right thing. You don't say, okay, what's the right thing? Let me do it. But it's considered what is the right thing to do given the circumstance, given the person, given the consequences. That's why mudara is a sign that consideration, they say, is a branch of wisdom or is the foundation of wisdom. And it's common tradition that darihim ma dumta fi darihim, that be tactful, discreet, and considerate as long as you remain in their abode. Right? This is the abode of tact and consideration. But there's a difference between consideration, which is in order to have right consequences, and on the other hand, being weak, which is because mudara, consideration, is to uphold what is right with rightful consideration of people, of circumstances and consequences. Something similar to mudara, but that is one of the worst of vices, and it is it is a sign of hypocrisy, is mudahana. Mudahana, which is feebleness, right? Mudahana is literally from, like, you just butter it up with people, right? Which is to leave what is right because of circumstances, people, or consequences. So someone's doing something wrong. Let's say your parents doing something wrong. So you want to tell them that mudara would be you uphold what's right with consideration. So they're my parent. I have to say it respectfully. Let me figure out how I can say it in a way that will have the right results. That's mudara. Mudahana is you know that it's wrong. They say, you know what, my allowance is tomorrow. Maybe I'll correct them on Saturday. Right? That's mudahana. Where Saturday comes, and then Saturday, well, we're going to go out. Maybe they'll get upset, so I won't. And people do mudahana all the time in their relationships. Spouses learn mudahana very well, right? Because if I do this, if then, right? So one has to be careful. And this is one of the amazing things about the Prophet. The Prophet always acted with this mudara. And this is the steed, what carries you in seeking knowledge and being a person of knowledge. وَجَيْشُهُ مُحَاوَرَةُ الْعُلَمَاءِ, and its army is to be in dialogue with the people of knowledge. Right? In that you're always connected with them. you're taking from them, you're expressing your ideas. You never float an idea about knowledge, about deen, about guidance, about community, about good, without having this discourse with the people of knowledge. Right? وَمَالُهُ الْأَدَبِ, and the wealth, the capital of knowledge is adab. Is adab. Is proper manners. It is having the right attitude and conduct and response in word and deed in every circumstance. وَذَخِيرَتُهُ اجْتِنَابُ الذُّنُوبِ, right? And it's dhakhira, it's store, right? It's store, right? Where, where its benefit gets stored up is keeping away from sin. Because otherwise, you have a bucket that has a hole in it. Doesn't matter how much water you put, you're losing more than you're gaining. وَزَادُهُ الْمَعْرُوفِ, and its provision is the ma'ruf, is that which is known to be of good, of seeking it and of giving it. وَمَاؤُهُ الْمُوَادَعَةِ, right? And what waters knowledge is trusts, right? That you fulfill trusts, you uphold trusts, right? Commitments, etc. This is the water of knowledge. Because otherwise, because the Prophet ﷺ said, there's no faith in one who cannot be trusted. And there's no religion in one who does not fulfill their commitments. وَدَلِيلُهُ الْهُدَى, and the guide of knowledge is guidance. And what is huda? Is the way of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That's guidance. وَرَفِيقُهُ صُحْبَةُ الْأَخْيَارِ, and its close companion on the journey, right? Because the rafiq is the one who's with you in your travels. Because the close friend would be the one you travel with. You'd have many people you know, but you travel with someone who's close with you. It's, close companion, on the journey of knowledge is keeping the company of the virtuous. Because the virtuous are not necessarily the people of knowledge. Right? There's a company you keep with the people of knowledge with respect to knowledge, with respect to understanding, with respect to approach, with respect to wisdom. But and sometimes the same person, you'll keep different types of company with them. You keep a company for knowledge, you keep a company for guidance, you keep a company for consultation. We also need to keep company with with the akhyar, with the virtuous, for their khair, for their spiritual and social virtues. So that's one of the key characteristics, right? These are the kinds of people we want to take our knowledge from. And we'll close. Of course, there's a condition. The third thing he mentioned is وَيَكُونُ قَدْ أَخَذَ فِقْهَهُ مِنْ أَفْوَاهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ, and that such a person took their understanding of religion from the direct teaching, literally from the mouths of the people of deep knowledge. لَا مِنَ الصُّحُفِ, not just from books, right? That they heard it by direct study from teachers. And just briefly, because this is a very important point, he mentions a number of the early Muslims, amongst them Sulaiman ibn Musa, who said, لا تقرأ القرآن على المصحفين ولا تأخذ العلم من الصحفيين. Do not take your knowledge of Quran from people of mushafs, from people who just got their knowledge of the Quran by learning it themselves. And do not take your knowledge from the people of pages, meaning the people who just learned their knowledge from pages. Okay? And many of the early Muslims, of the great Imams of the Salaf, said the same thing. Okay? Amongst them, Abu Zur'a al-Razi, one of the great Imams of Hadith, he said, لا يفتي الناس صحفي ولا يقرئهم مصحفي. That a person who took their knowledge from pages cannot give fatwa to people. So I read about it. I researched it. In the books of the ulama, someone would say, I researched it. Ahlan wa sahlan, right? Like, it doesn't matter at all. Right? It doesn't matter at all. The question, what do the ulama say about it? They're known, and if your knowledge is rooted in that, it is connected to the prophetic way. If you just, I figured this out myself. Based on my research, this is the truth. The truth is not based on you. Right? It's a way. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Guide us to a path that is straight. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. The path of those Allah blessed before. The characteristic of personal knowledge is that it's connected to that straight path established before. So someone did their research. Okay, who confirmed this? Did you consult the other scholars? Right? Did you consult the other scholars? You want an amazing example of that, of someone from our context? Listen to the interview of Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah. Became Muslim in 1970. Before most of us, not necessarily all of us, were born. Right? Right? He still considers himself to be a student of knowledge. And he's always studying, consulting, this and that. One of the first teachers of Dr. Jackson was Dr. Umar. Dr. Jackson will tell you that. One of the first teachers of Shaykh Hamza was Dr. Umar. Shaykh Hamza will tell you that. But every time he meets Shaykh Hamza, he says, I learned so much from him. I learned so much. In the interview, he says, Dr. Jackson is one of his mentors. And Dr. Jackson said, will tell you, I don't feel that I'm fit to be a student of Dr. Umar. So that's Dr. Jackson's humility. Right? But that's, he's, you can figure out from the interview how old Dr. Umar is, but he's not a kid. Right? The white beard's there for a reason. Right? It's acquired. But still, he's, several times, I find some interesting book, I give it to, he's giddy and excited like a kid. It's just a little book. Right? But he gets so excited. Because that's the quality. لا يفتي الناس الصحفي. A person who just takes their knowledge from books cannot give fatwa to people. Right? And nor can one who took their knowledge of Quran from a mushaf teach people Quran. Right? It's as simple as that. Right? And there a lot was said regarding that. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who take care of this and who promote this. And we fall into minor infractions of this. A lot of people, even people you'd expect to act otherwise, they say, oh, I'm memorizing the Ajurumiyya. They'll just go, in Arab, they'll look, Ajurumiyya, tasjil, recording of the Ajurumiyya. Someone played me the recording, and they started I don't know what they wanted to do with it. They wanted to get too upset with it. And literally in the opening 3 lines, there's at least 5 mistakes that I noticed immediately. You're reading, you put a recording of a text in Arabic grammar, and there's grammatical errors in your reading of it. Abe, you're reading it wrong. Just wrong. There's no way you can read Arabic like that. Number 2, there's grammatical errors in your reading of a grammar text. Number 3, there are just errors. There's no copy of the Ajrumiyya that says what you just said. And who is it? It's just some random person. But we just Google it. We want a collection of du'as of the Prophet ﷺ. Just you go to the Apple Store or whatever substitutes for that on Android device, and you look prophetic supplications and find something. Great, found this really cool app that's got all these features. People download Quran apps. Some of them, the Mus'haf has errors in it. Because there's no divine promise to preserve every copy of the Quran. That'd be an amazing miracle. That someone just put something on. Right? So this is a matter of serious caution. Right? Which is why in the Ottoman times, for a long time, they did not permit the printing press. Not because they're foolish, because we have an established system that only works, approve. Only people who we have approval of their accuracy in writing out manuscripts can make mass copies of religious texts. Right? And actually, if we remove the printing press from Islamic publication, like Imam Shafi'i said, if all those who don't know kept quiet, most confusion would cease. Okay? Like, we don't need more Islamic knowledge. Very often we need less. Right? First thing, let's cut out the confusion. Right? And then a little clarity will be more than enough. Right? And in our time, like, if you removed like maybe 95% of the Islamic content on YouTube, there'll be benefit rather than harm. And then the 5%, inshallah, will have some degree of manifestness. So, nasalullah taysir wal afiyah. And this is something we should, in a positive way, encourage other people, right? One, to seek, that people should verify, is this person actually learned and qualified, number one. But number two, it's very critical that they have the qualities of the people of knowledge, of their conduct and character. And when you don't know, be careful, consider, and consult. Right? Be careful, don't commit, consider, and consult. And one of the beautiful things is, we trust, but our trust is conditional and principled. Right? We follow scholars, but we don't follow them blindly. That just because they're shaykh, khalas, we surrender our deen to them. No. We stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sound following doesn't matter who it is. If they make a mistake, our deen empowers us that whoever it is, if they make a mistake, we do not follow them in it. Of course, with adab, with consideration, with tact, with respect, doesn't matter who it is. If they made a mistake, of course, we're not people bereft of adab. Someone makes a mistake, tell them privately. Okay? I actually said something, I was freaked out. One of the senior scholars called me, I didn't answer their phone call 3 times. I kind of knew what they're calling me about. Then someone messaged me, so-and-so is trying to reach you. So then when they called, I answered. But to their credit, what I said, they thought it was objectionable. But I think halfway through the conversation, they weren't convinced it was objectionable themselves. But they just called me. Okay? They could easily said, so-and-so said this, it's wrong. Actually, besides freaking me out, just increased me in respect for them. That's adab. Right? Like, compared to, I'm just like a fly, just swat me away. Like, I wouldn't mind. But this is deen. So we have to be very, very careful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitate for us and the ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam clarity. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.